I found out my dead father had a secret family, so I showed up at their door and claimed my half of everything. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning, 3 months after we buried my father. I was still going through his papers when the lawyer called about some documents that needed my signature. Nothing prepared me for what I found inside that manila folder. My hands trembled as I held the birth certificates, marriage license, and bank statements that painted a picture of a man I thought I knew. My father had been married to another woman for 15 years, had 2 kids with her, and owned a house in the suburbs just 40 minutes from where I grew up. The rage hit me like a freight train. All those nights he said he was working late, all those business trips, all those times he missed my baseball games because he was too busy. He was building another life while I was desperately trying to get his attention. I spent the next week in a haze, calling in sick to work and drinking my way through his liquor cabinet. My mom had died when I was 12 and he was all I had left. Now I felt like I had nothing again. The address on the papers burned into my memory. I drove past their house twice before I worked up the courage to knock. It was bigger than ours, nicer, with a swing set in the backyard and bikes scattered on the front lawn. A woman answered the door with flour on her apron and concern in her eyes. She looked to be in her early 40s, with kind features and graying hair pulled back in a ponytail. Behind her, I could see family photos covering the mantel, and my father's face smiled back at me from every single one. I told her who I was and watched her face crumble. She invited me in with shaking hands and called for her children. A boy who looked about 14 came down the stairs, followed by a girl maybe 10 years old. They both had my father's eyes. The woman, whose name I learned was Sarah, made coffee while I sat in their living room trying to process the normalcy of it all. This wasn't some sordid affair or secret he was ashamed of. This was a full life, complete with soccer practice schedules on the refrigerator and homework spread across the kitchen table. Sarah told me everything through tears that wouldn't stop flowing. She met my father at a conference 20 years ago, back when I was just 8 years old. They fell in love, got married in a small ceremony, and built what she thought was a perfect life together. She never knew about me or my mother. He told her he had no family, that his parents were dead, and he was an only child. She believed him completely, because why would anyone lie about something like that? The kids sat there in stunned silence as their world collapsed around them. The boy kept looking at me like I was some kind of monster, and the girl just stared at her hands. I felt like the villain in their story, even though I was just as much a victim as they were. Sarah showed me documents that proved my father had been supporting this family financially for years. The house was in both their names, along with 2 cars, a boat, and several investment accounts. Everything I thought would be mine was actually split between 2 families he never told about each other.